Sometimes I wonder whether I deserve my place at Oxford University. The course is tough, everyone around me seems way better than me, and I often feel like an imposter who has somehow managed to wrongly trick their way through the system to get a place. Hearing of all the world-class, uber-intelligent people who have been to this uni really makes you wonder if you fit this place. You look around at the beautiful architecture and awe-inspiring libraries and just think, I'm not of this level. At least when they do realise any day now, and my dream rightly gets snatched away and reality returns. Hopefully the constant edginess and feelings of fraudulence I experience every day will go away. At least that would be nice, I guess.
This video is about imposter syndrome, which is what I try to style in the introduction. It's this idea of whatever you've achieved, you don't feel like you deserve it. You feel like it might be taken away from you at any point when people realise that you are actually a fraud. The admissions people are going to realise they made a mistake with your place. So, if that sounds like something you might relate to, this is the video for you. But it's incredibly common at university, where people, no matter which university they go to, often think they don't deserve to be there. This is something I felt a lot, definitely, at the point where I got my Oxford offer, before I actually started to go there, and also definitely in the first few weeks. And now I'm 2 terms in, and it's still definitely a thing. So I wanted to talk about it in my personal experience, but then, of course, branch it out into general things. And as always, at the end, I'll try and put in some solutions, which I think work for me, and might work for you as well. So here are some of the reasons that I personally think contribute to my feeling of imposter syndrome at Oxford. The first thing, which I've mentioned in videos before, is the fact that I applied to Oxford the first time and didn't get in, got rejected. And then I reapplied the next year, and that time I got in. So even though I now have a place at Oxford and I do go to Oxford, because you've been rejected for a whole year, where I was thinking about it, you can never quite get out of your head that you are an Oxford reject. So as I'm walking around Oxford and I see everyone else, who 99% of them would have just got in the first time, just as I felt during my gap year, hearing about other Oxford people, which is kind of an element of jealousy, saltiness, whatever it is, just feeling like they're better than you academically. When I walk around Oxford right now, there's definitely still elements of that, which is, you got in the first time, I didn't get in the first time, you must be a level above me. Even though I know I got in the second time, this basically leads to me feeling like I am naturally not as clever as these other people, and even though I can reach that level needed to get into Oxford, I maybe had to work much harder to get to that level. And so I'm worried that even though I could kind of have as much time as I needed to work in order to get to that level, once the Oxford course gets really tough, which maybe it already has, or it definitely will even more so in the future, I'm worried that these people will also have to work super hard just to get it all done. And with their natural ability, which is greater than mine, I won't have enough hours in the day to kind of catch up. That is to say, if I need to outwork these people in order to get to the same level, but there comes a point where I simply can't outwork them because we're all just working so much. There's no more extra room to work more. That's just what's expected of everyone. I'm worried that I'm going to come unstuck. And these people who are naturally better will just fly away, and me not being able to put in the extra hours will just kind of fall. On that note, Classics, which is my course at Oxford, has relatively easy admissions rates. So I think it's somewhere, high 30s%, maybe it's sort of like 37% get in, whatever it is. Compare that to other courses like economics and management and some other courses like that, which were as low as like 6%. I look at people in these courses and think they must be amazing because they had such a hard journey to get in. Whereas for me, with the admissions odds not being that hard, maybe I got in just because there was space, and had my odds been at 6% or 10% or 15%, I wouldn't have got a place, and people like me would have been cut out, and I'm not really the Oxford standard. So I guess what I'm thinking is, if the course is going to become really hard for everyone, again, plenty of other people in Oxford must be naturally better at me because they had to beat off more people to get their place. Whereas for me, I only got in the second time anyway on such an easy course. I'm worried that, I'm just not at the same level. So this is the academic reason why I personally feel imposter syndrome. The next reason why I feel imposter syndrome, which links into kind of a bigger picture, is kind of seeing the type of professors, tutors, and to some extent maybe students that do Oxford Classics. It is changing now, but I definitely still think it's the case that most of our lecturers and tutors and stuff like that, by no means all, but definitely a majority, are kind of relatively older, white men who would have come from these British public schools like Westminster, Eton, Winchester, and that could create quite an intimidating environment. Like I say, it's not necessarily the case with the students anymore. I'm sure there was once upon a time where basically all of the classicists in Oxford came from those 3 schools. Maybe I've missed a few out, Harrow, I don't know. But apparently there are, for example, I know the example for Westminster, 9 classicists out of about 115 roughly in the year, which means 1 in every 12 classicists is from this one school, Westminster. But even within the classics bunch, people can tell if you're a Westminster kid, if you're really, really, really strong. People tell me, as we speak, that it doesn't mean just because you've all got in, you're all at the same level, which is definitely true. And I'm sure there were some Westminster kids who were lower than others, some who were higher than others. I'm just using Westminster as an example. But if someone has started Latin, as I'm sure there will be people in Oxford Classics, at the age of 7, they will clearly be better than someone who started at the age of, let's say, 14. And just because you all got in, doesn't mean you're all at the same level. And the people who have done it earlier probably will just do better. Which is understandable, they've done it for longer. You can't really get complaining at that. But this is another thing I slightly worry about sometimes, and in my imposter syndrome mind I think, these are the real classicists. You've got to have gone to one of these public schools where, you board or you have Saturday school, whatever it is. And this is my personal example of a wider issue, which is people, wherever you go to uni, can probably feel that it might be dominated by people in public schools or private schools or grammar schools, parts of the country, maybe the south, that tend to send more people to uni. And that can affect people. Linking to that is obviously different classes, but also different races, ethnicities, maybe gender in certain courses. And so this is another reason why certain people might feel imposter syndrome. If they're someone from the north, for example, who might be the first person in their family to ever be going to higher education, that could easily give a feeling of imposter syndrome, especially if you go to somewhere like Oxford. And that's probably just a more extreme version of what I'm personally feeling. My parents went to uni, for example. Basically everyone from my school went to uni afterwards, and they definitely had a history of sending people to Russell Group, unis and Oxbridge. But we can kind of see this general idea forming, which can give people some element of imposter syndrome. Another thing, which I feel to some extent, and maybe other people do, is the fact that they don't feel like they have actually achieved getting in themselves. That's particularly true for our age group right now, where we had these kind of COVID predicted grades that were given to us. And I know different schools did it differently, and depending on your exact year group, you may have had to sit exams in school, which were basically the exact same as A-levels. They just weren't literally public exams, but they just gave you the same grades. I personally was 1 year above that, so I had kind of predicted grades given to us, and we never really sat exams. Of course we did mocks and other things, but depending on the school, and I know the algorithm changed at some point, some people may feel they're at a place with higher grades than they might deserve, or naturally have gotten. I'm not sure that's something I necessarily feel for myself, because if you watch my A-level results day video, it's not as if I got the highest grades anyway. It didn't all work out like that. But you see these memes on TikTok, whatever, of people, being like doctors in 20 years time or engineers in 20 years time, when it's this generation getting through. And, you can imagine the meme. They, like make a mistake to the patient, or they make a bridge that collapses because we all had Zoom lessons in sixth form, and then we had fake grades, and we all got into these medical schools and engineering schools and whatever it is. But yeah, that kind of idea as well, I think, is a big reason why some people might feel imposter syndrome. So looking at different reasons why imposter syndrome can exist, there's clearly a scale between kind of irrational thoughts, which are maybe more like some of mine, to more deep-rooted thoughts that might be quite more legitimate. For example, you feel like you'll be the only person that's like you in your lecture theatre or class or whatever it is, for whichever reason. And that might make you feel like you don't belong. But 2 terms into Oxford, let me talk about how I'm now dealing with these feelings that I was feeling at the start, how much they've changed, and some of these things are obviously more easy to fix than others. For example, if you don't feel like you're good enough for the course, that's maybe more of an intrusive thought than literally you being the only black student in that room of STEMists. But in regards to the first thing which I talked about, which was I reapplied because I got rejected the first time, and all these ideas of I wasn't sure if I was academically strong enough, if I'd be squeezed out as the work got really hard, that everyone was having to work so much, I didn't have chances to kind of catch up by just outworking other people. Okay, we're only 2 terms in, and I'm sure it will get a lot harder, but there is still plenty of time to work and plenty of time to socialise. It's really not the case that we are working 12, 14 hours a day and you have no chance to catch up. If you need to put a few extra hours in on people, there is other time to catch up, but I'm not even sure I've needed that. I think I'm just as strong as anyone else, or just as weak as anyone else. We're all kind of muddling through together, and there are naturally people at the top and the bottom, but I need not have worried because I'm absolutely fine. You do have to be of a base level to get into Oxford, and that is a representation on your probably natural ability, but also how hard you work. And if you've got in, you will be good enough. I like the idea that someone told me, one of the older year students, when I was talking to them about this. They said, if you feel like you're academically not strong enough, it's not even an imposter syndrome thing about yourself. It's you are now questioning the professors and tutors that choose who gets in. So it's one thing to be insecure about how good you are, but if you actually worry about these things, you are now questioning the ability of the people who decide who gets in, which is the people who are lecturing you and tutoring you and everything like that. And when this person put it like that to me, I realised that, yeah, maybe it was more of an intrusive thought than I realised, and I definitely don't think those people are incompetent, no matter how I might feel about myself. So at that point, you've just got to trust the process, and don't get me wrong, you still have to work hard. It's not as if you're naturally clever enough to get in, you don't have to put in any of the work, but everyone does put in the work, so it's absolutely fine. Oxford terms, in general, are still, I feel, so long, even though I know they're super short compared to others, 8 weeks, and the intensity is so high that most people are not working at 100% or perhaps even near 100% for so much of the term. It's just impossible. There's just way too much burnout. People talk about 5th week blues, which is this burnout idea of once you're in 5th week, you've just passed halfway and you feel like you should be really close to the end because you've worked so hard in the first half, but you still realise you're in week 5 out of 8. You still have loads of time left, and you have this kind of blues period that people in Oxford say exists throughout the whole uni as a massive dip of emotions. The point is, again, it's really not as if everyone is working so hard. And if you know how to recharge yourself well, you can really get an advantage on other people if you feel you need to. Which again, almost certainly you won't. So I guess what I'm trying to prove in this point is 2 things. Number 1, you probably are more strong academically than you give yourself credit for, and you should put trust in the tutors who chose you, that they know what they're doing, had plenty of experience doing it, and you are the right fit for the course. But number 2, if that doesn't satisfy you, you will be able to have time to do the work you feel you need to do on top of other people. So that's kind of the academic sense. In the more sort of social sense, and by social I mean the class, race, gender, all that good stuff, I can't really justify that as much probably, because however it is for you and your specific course in uni is how it is. It's just objectively what it is. But if you are the only person of your race or gender, whatever it is, or one of a few, in your lecture theatre, okay, that does suck. That's really terrible, especially if the tutors are not very racially or balanced in terms of gender, etc. Yeah, that's something harder that I don't think I'll be able to fix over a YouTube video. But in general, hopefully over this video, I managed to explain what imposter syndrome is, which is maybe something you've been feeling without kind of realising and putting a name on it. Talked about how I felt with it, and how people feel in general, and also tried to give some advice. But as always, I'm just a guy speaking to you over a YouTube video, so take the good bits, leave the bad bits. I'm certainly no expert, but there we go. If you want to see another video of me talking about one of these issues, this one is loneliness at university, press over here. And if you want to see a slightly more light-hearted video about me going to an Oxford BOP, click on this side. As always, DM me on my Instagram about anything, at Sam's Oxford Studies. I reply to all of them. Do give me a few days in some cases, but I will reply. But apart from that, thank you as always ever so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.